Hello everyone, and welcome to another stream. Today we're not going to be doing any OpenGL stuff. It's about the first time in a couple of weeks that I've done something apart from that. Today we're going to be doing a React Native app because I just had the real itch to dive right back into the best language, JavaScript of course, which is just beautiful. Today we're going to be building an app that takes data from a certain API and then it displays it. There's going to be lists, there's going to be pages for each element, and stuff like that. So let me just put my screen up. Oh, you guys aren't supposed to see this. Hold on. Oh no. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, so today we're going to be building an app that communicates with the SpaceX API. So that's why I made my background Elon just for the, and believe it or not, that image is actually from the it is actually from the last React Native stream I did, where we learned some of the framework, but because that was right after he destroyed his window. It was just a whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. But anyway, so I'm going to explain a little bit about it. We're first going to install React Native, do all that good stuff, and then yeah, and then we'll watch some of this Chuck E. Cheese SpaceX launch watch party. All right. So the first thing we have to do is in this folder which I've created for the app, go ahead and open up a terminal window, and if you haven't already watched my previous videos on installing React Native, just go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to install React Native and a couple of the other things. So yeah, because that does all the Android Studio stuff that you need. So anyway, do we install React Native at all actually? I guess you don't have to install it. That's weird. Okay, whatever. So anyway, we're just going to create our project, wait a little bit, install our packages, and then we'll get started with all the actual code. So the first thing we're going to do is in the folder where you want the app to be, or the folder where you want the folder of the app to be, go ahead and type in, let me actually just zoom in a little bit. Go ahead and type in npx react-native init, and then the name of the app. So I'm going to call this SpaceX launches. So when we do that, and I'll pull up the window. It's really just a great what does that say? 2 minutes and 16 seconds to launch? This thing is like 1 frame per second. Oh, that's kind of loud. Yeah, so this is gonna take a while, and honestly, the installation will also take a little bit. Oh, I didn't even start my emulator. I'm an idiot. Hold on. I forgot to start that. Yeah, if you're not using an emulator, what you can do is you can just plug in an Android phone or a tablet, and that will also work. So I'm just gonna start this now. Okay. Alright, so that's started. I'm going to exit out of this, pull this over here. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and run the app, and we'll see, and we'll explore a little bit of it. So in order to run this, just go ahead and type in cd, so make sure you're in the same folder, and type in cd and then the name of the app, because what creating this project does is it creates a little folder for you that has all of the app files in it. So in order to actually run the app, we have to go into that folder. So cd SpaceX launches for me, like so, and now I'm in that folder. And then what I want to do is I want to run this out. So the way to run it is just saying npx react-native and then space run-android. There are a couple of other ways that we can do it, and we'll explore those as well. So I'm just going to hit enter. Alright, so it's going to do all this good stuff here. It opens up this window over here. And that's not what I wanted. Oh, that's from my Flutter stuff that I haven't looked at in forever. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so this is kind of the server for the app. So the way the React Native testing environment works is, oh shit, it's launching. Hold on. Oh my god, you can't even see it. I can't even see it. Godspeed, okay. We're done with that. So anyway, the way React Native works is it creates a server, like a mobile server. I forget what it's called. But then the phone's app actually just communicates. What? I don't know which app it's gonna use. I don't know what this is. Okay. Anyway, so it creates like a Metro server. That's what it's called. And from that, the phone will communicate with the server and get all the JavaScript, the built files. Oh, okay, so it is the right server. Okay. Okay. All right, so you can see that it's loading in here on the emulator phone. And if you do it on a tablet or an Android phone plugged in, it's the same exact thing. So I'm just going to put this over here. And you can see that we have all this. So now let's actually go ahead and map what this means in terms of the actual code. Oh, I should actually just minimize this. There we go, okay. So this is your kind of starting screen, and this is what they start you off with. So now let's actually go through this project structure. So all NPM, that's what we're using an NPM, that's a package manager. And all NPM package or applications start with this index.js file. So in the index.js file, it will actually call the app.js file where all of this code is set here. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking, we can actually just see, kind of change this and see how it affects this. So let's go ahead and change this edit to modify, and I'm going to hit Control S or save, and you'll see that it hot reloads. So you don't have to completely restart the app every time you make a change. It will just update the content and that individual piece of content there. Okay. So now let's actually let's install our next package, and then we'll actually get into writing some code. So in order to install another package, you actually have to stop the Metro server because it's gonna have to reload everything. So I'm just gonna clear that. I'm gonna stop the Metro server, and now we're gonna install a package called React Navigation. Now this package is gonna allow us to actually have multiple screens or multiple pages that NPM or that React Native will display in the app. So I add this link, which is in the description. We're just going to go ahead and follow the instructions and install all of these packages. So I'm going to click copy. By the way, I am doing a bare React Native app in here. We're not doing any Expo stuff just because we don't need all those packages. So anyway, it's npm install and then at React Navigation /native. So click enter or hit enter. And this will also take a little bit to install. See, it's going lightning speed. Just close my window real quick. It's getting a little humid in here. Okay, that's a little better. Still kind of humid, but. If you were wondering, this is the city's Skylines soundtrack. I forget who it's by, but it's a. Ooh, okay. I think it installed. Did it? I don't know. I honestly don't know if it did. You know, I'll call it again just to make sure it did. Oh, this is hot. Okay, we're good now. All right, so that's the React Navigation package, and then we also need a couple of other packages to help the navigation thing work. So further down in this link, there's another install link, and it has all the other packages that are needed to make this work. or to make the navigation stuff work. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this entire command, and I'm going to paste it right into the same terminal. And make sure that you are still in the React Native app folder. You can't just be in the folder with the folder, or the initial folder that we started with. So we'll install all these packages, and then we can actually get to writing a little bit of code. All right. Yeah, so those are just a couple of other dependencies that are needed. So now I'm actually just going to explain a little bit of this app and how I kind of formulate it, or create create the structure of it. So this is using my version of UML, or Unified Modeling Language, and it's just a little bit of this description. So anyway, the way it starts is you start at the app, and then when you start the app, it goes and fetches data from some API, and then that returns the data. And then you go to the home screen, and from there you can go to a launch screen, you can go to a launch list screen, and you can also go to an about screen. And the about screen will bring you back to fetch data as well. So let's go through what data fetching actually does. So this link has two actions, past and upcoming. The past launches, of course, retrieves the past launches, and the upcoming retrieves the upcoming launches. And this is all managed on the API itself. We're not actually creating this API. This is an existing API with all this data in it, and we're only going to be doing the launches today, just because it'd be way too much work, and I don't even know if we'll get through everything. So anyway, we put all the past data into a global variable, all the upcoming data into another global variable, but for each, even though they're separate, we are going to have one or a couple of unified lists that will allow us to kind of get data based on a name really quickly without having to sift through everything. So these are going to be smaller lists. Like these big lists have all of this data here, like flight number, pretty much a lot of stuff here, links, all that stuff in there. So anyway, we're going to be adding a small amount of data to two lists. There's going to be just a names list, and that will just have the launch names, and then there's going to be a dictionary which maps names to other properties like the flight number, the links, the mission patch icon, and the launch date. This is just stuff that will be needing quick access to for, let's say, the list. All right, so the home screen, or what I had planned for it, was you could kind of go to a launch screen 3 different ways. You can get the latest launch, you can search, you can also do a random launch, and I kind of mapped out what parameters will be passed in here in this table. And then I'm also going to have like a kind of stats sheet down here, which will take you to the launch list screen. I messed this up actually. So yeah, this will take you to the launch list screen, and that will also have a couple of different parameters. So for the latest launch, for example, the index on the name list is going to be just the length of that list minus 1, and then the name will be the name at that index. And then for same thing for the other, or something similar for the other two. And then for the launch list screen, you can either do completed or planned, and that's just kind of that there. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, now to the launch page. This just takes in a bunch of data, takes in a couple of parameters like the name, and then it gets data from the big lists and then kind of places it all in here like that. We'll get into I don't even know if we'll get it into all this data, and we might. Next, I'm going to have a list, which will just list a couple of things, or list a couple of launches based on a parameter. That's that. And then finally, the about page will have a button that allows you just to refresh the data, which will of course call fetch data. Okay, now it's actually, ooh, Jesus, you guys can see it. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Okay, now let's, all right, so let's actually just close out of this, and I'm going to rerun, and I'm going to restart the Metro server. So there's actually another command that you can use, and you can actually find it in the package.json. So React Native actually creates a command that just says, where if you say npm android, all it does is it just calls npm React Native run Android. So that exact command. So we're just going to say, in the command line, we're going to say npx android. And I hope that works. Command not, it's npm rather. npm android. No, not even. I put a slash. That was my mistake. npm android. Okay, now. No, it's not even. All right, we're just going to use the initial one. npx react dash native run dash android. I thought that would work, but. Interesting. Okay, whatever. All right, so it's starting the Metro server again. Ooh, I don't want to. No, I'll just keep it open. But I want to have this emulator up here. Okay. So let's start with creating our. Well, we can actually just get rid of everything in app.js right now because we won't need that. So where did the Metro server go? Oh, okay. That's unfortunate. Yeah, sometimes you might need just to restart it if it if stuff closes like that. So that's all I'm gonna do here. Okay. All right, so that's the Metro server. I'm not sure. Well, I hope that doesn't close. All right. So in app.js, which is in the root folder of the app itself, you can just go ahead and delete everything because we will not be needing that. Instead, okay. Yeah, so you see the app is running again. So now we're actually going to put some code in here. The first thing we got to do is import React. So import React from, and then we're going to call the package React. That's just typical JavaScript npm syntax to React or to import packages from files. Next, we're going to include our navigation stuff. So navigation here, and we're going to say import and then navigation container from @react-navigation/native, and then import stack or create stack navigator from @react navigation/stack. Although it's not finding that. I couldn't find. I might need to reinstall the packages. Yeah, this stuff is really. Hold on, let me just. Oh yeah, we need to install React Navigation Stack. That's another package. Great, we need to restart everything. That's really wonderful. Here, okay. So on top of all those other commands, you need to just do npm install @react-navigation/stack. Okay, and then great, here we go. All right, that's again. All right, there we go. Okay, that wasn't too long. All right, now we can run the app again. So npx react-native run-android. Okay. And finally, we can get into writing some code. All right. That was actually relatively quick, I won't lie. Okay. Well, anyway, it's throwing you this error because we haven't actually given an element to display because we deleted everything. Okay. Now we're going to do our navigation stuff. So we're going to say const stack is equal to create stack navigator. And now we're going to export our app. So the way we say that is export default function app. So what the default keyword tells the compiler is that this is going to be the function that you run by default. It's kind of like public static void main. it's like int main, that sort of stuff. I'm actually going to update this just because I don't want to do 2 tabs. That's not fun. Okay. So it doesn't return anything because we haven't given it anything to say. So before we actually return anything, we're going to initialize our data variables. So initialize data variables. And so we're going to have a global.dataLoaded is equal to false. Global.upcoming launches is equal to an empty list. Global.past launches is equal to an empty list. Global.launch names is equal to an empty list as well. And then global.name data is equal to an empty dictionary. Because once again, this will map names to data. All right, now we're actually going to return something now. So we're going to say return, and then in parentheses, you have to return all React Native JSX. So JSX is kind of like the language that we're going to use to write our modified HTML stuff, and you have to surround it with parentheses at all times, because otherwise it doesn't read it properly. So what we're going to say is we're going to return a navigation container. And in this navigation container, we're going to have a couple of stack navigator, or one stack navigator. So we're going to say in here, stack.navigator. And don't close the element yet because we have to do some properties. So I'll actually just put that right there. Yeah, okay. So the first property is going to be our initial route name, and that's going to be equal to home. We're going to create that in half a second. Next is we're going to have some default screen options. So screen options, and this is going to be equal, and this is where we're going to configure our default, like, because what this React navigation, it creates a header bar at the top of each page, and we can actually configure that to say whatever we want it to. So we're going to say screen options is equal to, and then it's going to be 2 open curly braces, and then in here we're going to say header style, and then we're going to set the background color to hashtag F4511E. You can do whatever you want, and then height is 56. And then next we're going to say the header tint color, so this is the color of the text, is going to be a hashtag FFF, which is just white. Oh. Just like that. Make sure you put the colors in quotes. And then finally, we're going to say header title style. And in header title style, we're going to say font weight is bold. All right, and now we can do that. Those are the properties. Those are the default properties, rather. And now we're actually going to put in our files. So the way you input a file is we're going to say stack.screen, where stack is, once again, this create stack navigator that we have. Oh, it's actually not open and close, it just has properties. So in stack.screen, what we're going to say is name is equal to home, component is equal to empty now, or for now, because we're actually going to give it some, we're going to create a screen in a second. And then we're also going to give it some custom options. So these are the default navigation options, and you can actually customize those for each page. So in each stack.screen, what you can say is options, and that's equal to 2 open curly braces, and then we're going to say header style, and we're just going to give it a custom header color. So we're going to say background color, and we're going to give it a dark color. So this time it's hashtag 000846. And we're also going to give it a custom title, because we don't want it, because by default React navigation will just say this is the title, home. But we actually want to give it a title of SpaceX launches. All right, and now we can say that's going to give us more errors just because we didn't pass anything in. So now let's actually go ahead and create our component. So in the app folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder called app, and this is where I'm going to put all my pages and stuff. In here, we're going to add a folder called pages, and then in there, let's create one file called, let's call it home.js. And in home.js, we're going to say import React, comma, component from React, and then import view and text so far from React-native. And now let's go ahead and create our class. So we're going to say export. That just tells npm to export this with the module home. So we're going to say export class home screen, and it extends a component. So essentially everything in React Native is a component, and we're rendering the app, which is itself a component. All right, now we're going to have a render. So in here, we're just going to return a view. So the way you do that is just say view, and then we're just going to say text is hello world. All right, so you can save that. It's still going to give us errors. And now we actually have to go back into app.js and actually import this. So we're going to import our screens. So we're going to say import star, so all as home page from /app/pages/home. So that's just the path to the module itself. And this is, remember, this is relative to app.js itself. We can actually put app.js in the app folder, and we'll just have to update a couple of dependencies. So that just pages.home, and then if you put that in that folder, you have to update the import from index.js to ./app/app. Okay. And now we can specify the component. So we're going to say home page.home screen, and let's save this, and now we'll refresh it, and we get this isn't right. What? I'm confused. Why is this not working? I think maybe that it might be that we have to import the the navigation stuff. So at the top of index.js, before you do anything else, just say import React-native-gesture handler. That's just something that's required. So save that. Maybe that fixes this. What's the deal? All right, it seems like it's like continuously reloading. So I'm going to stop this. God damn it, this has to happen now. All right, I'm going to rerun this stuff. There we go. Okay, so now it works. That was weird. I don't know. So let me just reconfigure this. All right. So what you can see is that this has its own header. So this header comes from React Navigation, and in that header, you see that it has its own background color. So this is the background color that we specified in stack.screen, not the default stuff, and it has its own title as well. And then this component comes from the hello world that it comes from the home screen that we created. Okay, now we're going to just create files for, I'll just start with the home page and then we'll progress from there. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll actually go through the data loading, just to get that stuff out of the way. So in app, I'm going to create a new folder called data, and then I'm going to create a file in there also called data.js. So in data.js, we're going to have a function, and we'll say export async, and async just means that it has its own like thread. So we're going to tell it, oh, you have to wait for this thread to finish before continuing. So we're going to say export async and then function fetch data. So in here, what we're going to do first is we're going to reset the values. So the values of the global variables. So all you have to do here is just copy all these global variables that we set in app.js and copy and paste it into there, because that just sets everything back to its default. And now we're going to get our pass variable. Get the pass launchers first. So get pass launchers. And we're going to say let response is equal to await fetch, and then in fetch, this is a npm or a React Native function. All you have to do is you have to pass in the URL. So for our for the pass launches, the URL is this. So it's, and I'll show you guys what the response will look like. So it's all this data, but this is all JSON data, so it's easy to actually just process pretty simply. So we're going to fetch from this URL in there, and then what we're going to say is now we're going to process that data using another function here. So you have to say process or function. Oh, I misspelled that. Process data and pass in the JSON data and then a Boolean value for upcoming, if it's upcoming or not. So after we get the data, we're going to process that data. So process data await response.json. That's another async function, and then false, because it's not upcoming. And then we'll do the same thing for the upcoming launches. So get upcoming launches. So we'll say response. We don't need to say let again because it's already declared. So we're going to say response is equal to await fetch, and this time we're going to give it the same URL, but instead of past, we have to say upcoming. And then here we're going to say process data, same thing, await response.json, but we're going to pass in true this time because these launches are upcoming. And then after this, we're going to say set loaded. So we're going to say global.data loaded is equal to true. All right. All right, so now let's actually write the process data function. This shouldn't be too much. Oh, Jesus. One second, I'm just going to move something so I don't get too hot. All right, so in process data, we're going to start out by giving the smaller data to the lists that we want. So we're going to say JSON.forEach, and you can say JSON.forEach because this API returns an array of launches. So if you take a look at here, it starts out as an array, and you know that because it's a square bracket, and it just has dictionaries for each launch itself. So yeah, that's that. So we're going to iterate through each launch, and we're going to do a couple things with it. So we're going to say global.launchNames.push, and then we're going to say element, and then we're going to get the mission name from that. So element is just this variable right here. That's just your iteration variable, and then we're just pushing that name. This is just a string that's in that JSON data, and we push that to the global launch names variable. And then next we're going to construct a little bit of data about this. So we're going to say var data is equal to a dictionary, and we're going to say upcoming is equal to upcoming. Then list IDX is equal to parse int, and we're going to parse that integer from element at flight_number -1. So the flight numbers start at 1, and this is at the 0th index, so we just have to subtract 1 from there. You know, we can actually, I don't think we have to actually parse any integers, because that's already that's already an integer, so we don't have to parse any integers. Okay, next is an icon URI, so icon URI, and this is going to be equal to element at links, which also returns another dictionary, at mission underscore patch underscore small. That just gives us the URL location of the patch, and you can see that right over here. So that's the patch for the first SpaceX launch. And then we're going to put this data into the global name data variable. So we're going to say global.name data at element, because remember this is a dictionary, it maps a name to data. So we're going to say element at mission name is equal to data. And then finally, what we're going to say is we're just going to set this data to either the upcoming or the past launches. So we're going to say global, we're going to say if upcoming global.upcoming launches is equal to JSON. So we're putting the list in there, and then else we're going to say global.past launches is equal to JSON. Okay, so that's the entire data module. We won't be needing to change any of these values. So let's go back into home, and we actually need to import this into our file. So it's the same thing as anything else. So we're just going to say data here. So we're going to say import, and we're just going to get that one function. So it's called fetch data from, and then we're going to say // oh, no, this isn't app. You have to go into the home page. I'm sorry. That's a mistake. In home.js, you have to say import fetch data from // data / data. And the reason why you don't need a .js there at the end is because this data is a module. It's not a because the module is named after the file. All right, so now we're going to actually give it some data, or we're going to tell it to actually set the data. But once again, like I said, this is an async function, so it does take some time. Now, we don't just want to give the user a blank screen. We're going to give it like a loading bar, or we'll just say it loading data or something. So in order to do that, we have to take advantage of something called a state variable in React Native components. So to set the state variable, we're going to actually create a constructor first. So constructor, and constructor takes in a dictionary of properties called props. So the first line of all React Native component constructors is just super props. And then after this, what you have to say is we're going to give it a state. So we're going to say this.state is equal to, and then ready is false. I don't think we need the global.data loaded. That's not entirely necessary to do that. All right, so back in home.js, so now we have this state variable here. So what we're going to say is we're now going to override another method called component DidMount. And this function is called when the component is kind of, it happens when the component is, it says mounted. That's a really nice description there. But it's not called every re-render. So if you want to change something that happens every re-render, you'll have to put that in the render method. But the reason why we're using this method is if we set the state in this variable or in this function, it will re-render the data. So all we're going to say is if, that global.data loaded is actually necessary. We do need that. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Yeah. All right. We do need that. We do need that. So in component DidMount, we're going to say if not global dot data loaded. We're going to load the data. So we're going to say fetch data. And then since it's an async function and we don't want to make component DidMount an async function, we're going to say dot then, and then lambda functions to this dot set state, and we're just going to pass in ready is true. Just like that. So when we say this dot set state, this will actually re-render the data with the new values. And then otherwise, we're just going to say this dot set state ready true. And this will happen if the app is reloaded, but the data is already loaded, and so we don't want to reload the data, and we don't want to make or have another communication with the API itself. Okay, so how are we actually going to use this? Now, the way that React Native works is you can actually take the state variables in the render method and display different content based on that state variable. So in render, we're going to say if this.state.ready, and then if it is ready, we want it to return hello world. Otherwise, though, we're going to say return just loading data. So we're going to say return, and then in parentheses, view, and then text loading data. All right, so now let's see what happens when we save this and get some stuff. So it starts out as loading data, and then we get an error because something happened. Can't find variable element. Okay. Oh, I misspelled element. Yeah, that tends to happen. All right, so now let's rerun. All right. Here, let me refresh. So you see loading data, and then it changes to hello world once that data has been loaded in. And you can console.log it just to make sure the data has actually been loaded in. All right, so now let's get to work on constructing the actual home screen. First, actually, let's create our launch page screen, just because we'll be routing there several times on this screen. All right, so in Pages, go ahead and create a new file called launch.js. And in launch.js, let's just go ahead and create a component, and we'll actually play with some of the navigation routes. So we're going to say import React component from React. We're going to import view and text once again from React-native. And then after this, we are going to create our class. So we're going to say export class launch screen extends component. And we're just going to do a render, and there are no state variables in here because this data is just static. We're not updating it or anything. So we're going to say render. Oops. And in render, you don't only have to do return. You can actually do a couple of other things during render. So before we return a view, we're actually going to want to process this, the parameters that the route gives us. So what we're going to say is const navigation route is equal to this.props. So you might be wondering what these curly braces are and how we declare a variable. It's similar to this. So essentially props is its own dictionary, and dictionaries are represented, of course, with curly braces. Now route and navigation are by default passed in to the properties when we call the navigator. So navigation and route will be passed in as props, so it can actually get these values here. So route will store parameters that we will need, or that we will use in this page here. And then likewise, we can do the same thing with parameters. So we're going to say const, and then from these parameters, we're going to get a list, IDX, and a name. So I'm just going back to the PowerPoint that I showed you with the parameters. And this is going to be equal to route.params, and params is a dictionary, and we're getting the name and the list IDX from that. All right, so now we're just going to return a, and then in parentheses, we're going to say a view, and we'll just print out the name. So we'll say text, and in here, let's actually just put the ID first. So to actually put a variable in JSX, what you have to do is you have to put it in curly braces, and then we're gonna say list IDX. And list IDX is a variable that we declared up here. So now if we save this, nothing's gonna happen because this actually is not programmed into our navigator yet. So back in app.js, we need to add this as a route. So we're first going to import it from the pages. So we can actually change this to import home screen from there, and then change this as well. You don't need to do any of that stuff. So, and then we're also going to import launch screen from /pages/launch. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing, except we're only going to use the default values here, except for the name and the title. So for the launch screen, we're going to say stack.screen, and then the properties are the name or the route is going to be equal to launch, and then we're going to say component is equal to launch screen. That's imported from the launch module. And then next we're gonna have a couple of options. So options. Now in options, what you can do is you can actually tell options to take data from the route and customize that. And we're actually gonna customize the title of this header bar up here using the parameters. So we're gonna say options is equal to, and then open curly braces, open parentheses, and then open another set of curly braces. We're going to say route, then close that parentheses, or curly braces, close the parentheses, and then we're going to do a lambda. So this is the parameter to our lambda. The route is our parameter to our lambda function. And then we're just going to say, in parentheses, we're going to say title, and we're going to set title to route.params.name. And then you can close this element here. So when we actually navigate to this route, we're going to have to pass in a parameter called name. Why is this? This music is very soft, actually. Okay. So now that's actually in our it's in our stack. It's in our navigator stack. No errors, so that's good. And now we can actually create a button to go to this page from home.js. So in home, we first have to get our navigator. So in render, we're going to access this navigator element the same way we did in launch. So it's going to be this exact line here with the navigation, except we don't use a route because we're not going to need it. So const navigation is equal to this.props. So now in view, instead of saying hello world, we're going to get a button. So we actually have to import that from React Native. So add that to the imports up here. So we're going to say button. The title is latest launch. And then here we're going to say on press. This is another property. All of these things that look like XML, these are all going to be included in that props thing. So JSX will actually create a dictionary based on these properties that we pass in here, and those will be the props that we access. So we're going to say on press is equal to, and then we're going to say open curly braces, and then in open and close parentheses, and then those are our parameters to our lambda function, which will say, so to get the latest launch, the index is going to be global.pastLaunches.length -1, just like I said in the PowerPoint. And then we're going to say navigation.navigate, We're going to pass in launch for the route, so that string route that we set in app.js, this thing right here. We're going to say launch, and then we're going to pass in the parameters as a dictionary. So in a dictionary, we're going to say list idx is idx, and then name is global.launch names at list or at idx. All right. So let's save this, and you see the button. So let's click on it, and we get to the latest launch, which is Starlink 7, and the list IDX there is 94, and I'm not going to look at it, but I think the launch number was 95 of this launch here. So this was the one on June 3rd, not the manned one. That was the one before that, but this was an unmanned one. All right. So you might be wondering, if we have to define all these properties explicitly in launch.js, how do we have access to the navigation prop? Well, we actually don't need that in launch.js. No, we will, but this navigation, when we call navigate, so navigation.navigate, this is just a function with a navigation prop, that will automatically pass in navigation as a prop to whatever component it's navigating to. So this will create component launch screen, and it will pass in navigation as one of the props named navigation. And we can access that and route as well. So it does the two. Okay, let's create another way to actually go to this launch screen here. So back in home.js, and I'll say one last thing. Notice how we don't have to include the launch file in home.js because it's already in the stack navigator right here. All right, so now in home.js, we're going to create our search value. So we're going to put this in a view. We're going to have a nested view just because this will help later on with layout. So we're going to have our text input. So we have to include that component as well. So text input comes up here. So we're going to say text input. We'll say the style is equal to, for style you just do two curly braces, and then height is 40. Next property is going to be placeholder. So placeholder is equal to launch name. And then now we're going to actually program the way to change the text. So this isn't like a desktop application where it automatically changes the text and you don't have to do anything else. With a mobile app, when you change the text, that becomes a dynamic component because you are changing the state of it. I don't think desktop apps work the exact same way, but with text input, what you have to do is you actually have to create a variable to store the text in the state variable that will then update every time something you type in a key. So in state, when we say this.state in the constructor, we actually have to add another value, and we'll call this name, and we'll just initialize it as an empty string. So so we just added another parameter. Now in that text input, we're going to create a callback. So we're going to say on change text, this is equal to, and then in curly braces, we're going to have a lambda function. This lambda function will take a name as a parameter, and that's just the value in the text input at that moment, is equal to, and then that goes to this.setState, and then we pass in name. So this is a little weird syntax here. How does it know that this name matches automatically to this? Well, React Native is pretty easy with this stuff. Like, you can just pass that in. And also, you'll notice that we don't have to pass in both variables whenever we set the state. You can only pass in one, and it will re-render the data. So that's our callback. Now we have to set the value. So the value is equal to this.state.name. All right. So let's actually run this just to make sure the typing works. So go back to the home screen and you see the text input there. I'm gonna type in blah blah blah, and you see it saves value. It doesn't delete or anything. Okay. So now we're actually gonna create our button to save this, or to search. So we're gonna say button title is equal to search, and then now we're gonna have our onPress callback. So onPress is equal to a lambda with no parameters. And in here, we're going to say let IDX equal to, let me just make sure I'm getting the right thing. It's global.launchNames.index of this.state.name. So this just gets the index, and it will return -1 if it didn't find it. So we're going to say if IDX is equal to -1, we're just going to alert the user that they typed in something wrong. So we're going to say alert launch name not found, and otherwise we're going to navigate. So we're going to say else navigation.navigate, and remember, navigation comes from the props that we get here. So navigation.navigate launch. So remember, that's the route name, and then we're gonna pass in parameters. So the parameters are going to be list IDX is just IDX, and then name is just this.state.name. You can do that and then close that out. And then there should not be a semicolon there, but you should just close out the button element. All right, so now let's save this. So let's try typing in something random. I'm gonna search launch name not found. Now let me type in, or let me just get the name here. So latest launch is Starlink 7. So if I type in Starlink 7 and search, it will bring us to Starlink 7. So now let me type in another one. Let's say Starlink 6. I hope that is right. Yeah, Starlink 6 has a different IDX, so it finds that nicely. Okay. Now let me find Starlink's 0. Starlink, I can't talk. So it doesn't find that name, so it says launch name not found. All right, so now we're going to do the third way to actually go to the launch page. So that's going to be through a button. So we're going to say button, and the title is going to be equal to random launch. And on here, we're going to say on press. This callback is going to have an empty lambda parameter, no parameters. This will point to, ooh, that's not right. So this will say, so we're going to get a random variable here. So let IDX is equal to math.floor, because we want an integer. And we're going to say global.launchNames.length -1 times math.random. So what does this do? So if you don't know how the random function works, I hope you guys do, because it's not too much. But essentially math.random returns a decimal value between 0 and 1. So we want it to go from 0 to the highest index, and that's going to be launchNames.length -1. And if you multiply that by 1, you will get that value. But we're just flooring that. So yeah, so you actually have a very low probability of getting the latest, or getting the latest launch, yeah, like the latest planned launch. Because it will rarely be exactly 1, and we're flooring the values. All right, so once we get the index, we're going to do the exact same thing that we said here. So navigation.navigate, I'm just going to copy and paste it into here. All right, so see that the button's here, random launch, gives us 40, and it didn't find a name. Oh, because this.state.name is not set. So if you copy and paste, you just have to change it to global.launchNames@IDX. All right. Save that, make sure it refreshes, and we'll say, then a random launch, and it gives us JC-SAT18/Pacific1. Typo? I don't know, maybe. Good job, Elon. All right, that's cool. All right, so those are the 3 ways that we're going to actually navigate to the launch page. So So let's actually take a break from doing navigation stuff, and we'll do a little bit of styling. So in app, I'm going to create a new folder called assets, and in here we're going to have a folder called style. And then in style, we're going to have a file called style.js. So in style.js, we're just going to start with the container. So let me just find it. All right, so in style.js, we have to import one thing. So import style sheet from React-Native. So this just imports the style sheet component. And the way to create a style sheet is we're going to say export const styles is equal to style sheet dot create, and what you pass into here is you pass in a dictionary. So this dictionary, it's kind of like CSS except you have camel case. So let's do the container first. So you're going to give it a name, and then that will map to its own dictionary. So we're going to say container, and that maps to its own dictionary where flex is 1, and then flex direction is column, and justify content with space around. All right, so save that, nothing should change. So as you can see, it's kind of like CSS, except it's camel case, you don't have the dashes in between. So now let's actually give this style to something. So in home.js, we're going to go ahead and say in view, view is equal to style, and then this is equal to curly brace, or so we're in the base view here. So in curly braces, we're going to create a list of classes that apply to this. So lists is just, or we actually have to import it first. So we're going to say import styles from /assets/style/style. So we're going to say the first class will be styles.container, and that's just that. Now you see that it will change to be a flex box now. And that's the reason why I put the text input and the button in a single view, just so they would be together. All right, I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back. You can play around with the styling if you want. Add some colors. It's mainly just C++ or CSS stuff, so many of the properties are the same. What is this music? This is creepy. I don't even know if it's playing anything, to be honest. Alright, let's keep going. So that's our first intro into styling. So now we're going to go ahead and do our lists. And then maybe, depending on the time, we might go further with details, but I don't know if it might be it from then. Like I don't know if we're gonna have time to program in each little property. Oh, that's scary as shit. Each property into the launch screen, because that might take a while. Okay, so for the list, it's gonna be it's gonna be its own page. So in pages, we're gonna say new file, and we'll call this launch list.js. In launch list, we're going to do our base imports. So yeah, this is just like our macros in C++. You must have this stuff in launch list. So we're going to say import React, and then in curly braces, we're actually going to import two things. We're going to say component and pure component. Pure component will help with list rendering and makes it a little faster. So we're going to say from React. But everything else will be pretty much the same thing. So next we're going to say import view text flat list touchable opacity. So these are just some new components, and we'll go through each of them, and then image from React-native. All right. And then we also want to import our styles. So we're going to say import styles from /assets/style/style. All right, now let's do our component. So we're going to say export class launch list screen extends component. In here, we're only going to have our render method because there's going to be no state, so we don't have to do any prompts or any special. We don't have to configure a state variable or anything like that. So we're going to say render. We're going to get our navigation and route first. So const navigation route. So navigation, or we're going to need the route because we're going to need parameters passed in, and this is going to be equal to this dot prompts. And then from the route, we're going to get a lower range and an upper range. So const lower range and upper range is equal to route.params. So next, what we're going to do is, the way I kind of had it, or the way I kind of tried to mold our data into a list that we can use in a flat list, is like this. So we're first going to get the names in between this range from global.launch names. So we're going to say const name, or list names is equal to global.launchNames.slice. So we're slicing the list, or we're not actually slicing it, but we're just taking a slice out of it. So we're going to say from lower range to upper range. So this just takes a section out of the launch names list. And now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to map each name to a key. Now, the way React Native lists work is you have to pass in a list of dictionaries, and each dictionary has to have a key value, which will just be called key. Yeah, so what we're going to use the map, arrays.map function in JavaScript. So we're going to say const list data is equal to name or list names dot map, and so this is going to be a lambda function. So name. So since this is just a list of strings, we're just going to take each element in there. So I'll put a little I forget what it's called. I'll put a little pseudocode for what this actually looks like. So, and then that's just going to go ahead and return a dictionary where key is name. So a little pseudocode for this. So what map does is it essentially, so for each name in list names, we're gonna say list data plus equals a dictionary where key is set to name. So that's just this kind of pseudocode. It's pretty simple. This is just a little nifty function that you can use to iterate through each element really quickly and kind of take the values and and map it to something else. That's why it's called map. All right, so now we're actually going to return something. So we're going to say return. We're going to return our view. So view, and we'll give it our style. So style is equal to, and just styles.container. And in here, we're going to have a flat list. So flat list. And it only has props. You don't put anything in it really. So what we're going to add styles in half a second for it. But the first prop is going to be data. So data is equal to list data. So once again, each flat list has to have a list of keys essentially. I don't know why you can't put name in there or just pass a list of something, but it wants key. And the reason, or I guess the reason for that is because then you can kind of map everything else to it. All right. So now what we're going to say is initial num to render. So we're just going to pass in a 8 here. And the reason why is because we don't want it to render everything at once. That will slow things down. So next we're going to render each thing as, and you can customize the rendering thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to render each thing as text at first. So we're going to say render item. This is a callback, so it's going to be item in as a parameter, and that points to, we're going to say text, and in the text we're just going to say item.key. So I hope this, oh, and then we need to add this to the actual navigator. So in app.js, let's go ahead and add a new route. So stack.screen name is equal to launch, or name is equal to launch list. Component is equal to, we need to import this. So import launch list screen from /pages/launch. There's the music. So the component is equal to launch list screen, and then options, we're going to customize the name. We're just going to pass in the name as a parameter as well. So it's essentially the same. It's the same exact line as we did for the launch screen. So just there. All right, so that should be good there. So refresh. All right, so now let's actually add a way to navigate to this. So we're going to go into home.js, and how did I do this up here? So we're going to put this in a view, and we're going to make it a row. So view, and I'll just put text stats here, just because I'm really cool. So now we're going to have a row of buttons. So the way to do this is we're going to have another view here. So what we're doing here is we're putting this in a single view, everything in a single view, so the flex doesn't kind of space it all wacky. And next we're going to have another view which will style customly to actually make it a row. So we're going to say style is equal to styles.main or styles.row, and let's program that right now. So for a row, it's just two things. You just need to say row, and that goes to flex direction row, and then justify content space around, just like that. Okay. So now home.js. In this row here, we're going to have two buttons. So we actually have to import touchable opacity. So touchable opacity, I haven't really explained it. It allows you to touch it, so it gives a callback for on press, but it doesn't show up as a button. So you can kind of put anything you want in there. You can put an image in there. You can do whatever. So we're first going to have touchable opacity, and then one of the props is going to be our onPress callback. So onPress is equal to empty parameter to a lambda function, and that's just going to be navigation.navigate to launch list, and the parameters are going to be first one is going to be the lower range will be equal to 0, and then upper range will be equal to global.pastLaunches.length. And then we want to set the name because we need that in the stack navigator. So we're going to say name is completed launches. All right. And then we can give it a style too. So style is equal to styles.button, and we'll give that a style right now. So back in style.js, for button, what we're going to say is button, the width is 50%, and you have to put the 50% in quotes because that's not a number. The height we'll say is 46. The margin will be 4. Flex will be 1. And flex direction will be column, because we're going to be adding 2 components here. And then justify content center. All right, so we save this. And now back in home.js, what we have to do is add our text elements. So we're going to say text style is equal to styles.text important. Once again, we're going to put this in a second. And then in this text, we're going to pass in global.upcoming launches.length. So this is going to be the number so we're going to say past launches first. So past launches.length. And then we'll have another text component. So this is where the flex comes in. So text style is equal to styles.text center. And this will just be completed launches. All right, so now let's actually add these styles in. So you can actually see that it says 95 right there, which is good. So in style.js, let's do our thing. So text important has a font weight of bold and a font size of 36. And font sizes are numbers, so you can just pass them in as numbers. And then text center is going to be text align center in quotes. All right, and then we actually have to add, you see you get the little thing there. So we actually have to add the text center style class to the first text component as well. You can kind of customize this on how you want, but this is how I kind of liked it. So what we'll see now is if I press on this, it'll take us to completed launches, where we will get all of the completed launches. Look at that. So that this is just a text list with every name of every completed launch that SpaceX has done. And I believe that each of these will actually map. Did we program? No, we haven't programmed that in yet. Okay. So let's actually do the second button now. So we can actually copy this and just change the things that we want. But with me, I can't. I suck at copying and pasting. All right. So let's start from the top. So lower range now becomes global.pastLaunches.length. And then the upper range becomes global.launchNames.length. So the reason why I'm able to do this, but I didn't really explain this that well, but in data, what we did is we added all the completed names first, and then added the upcoming names after. So I know how to section that based on the launch, the upcoming launch, the past launches length, and so forth. All right, so that's the upper range, and the name now becomes upcoming launches. The text, so we're going to say this becomes the global.upcoming.launches.length, and this that's the number of planned launches. All right, so let's save this, and we'll go back home. And I didn't point this out, but you see that this color is the default color that we programmed in here. So this is that color in the default screen options in app for the stack navigator. So let's go back home, and you see now that there are the 2 things, and if we click on planned launches, we have the upcoming launches so far. Okay. All right, so that's pretty cool. So before we go any further, I'm just gonna wanna or make the launch list a little more complex than what it is already. So I'm actually going to create a custom component in launch list to actually represent one of these items. Because right now what we have is just a bunch of names, but I want to add clickable, I want to add interactivity, so if you click on one it takes you to the page. I also want to add the image so that you get the mission patch with it. So we're going to go ahead and create another component above the launch list screen. So we're going to say class launch list item extends pure component. So this is where we're going to use pure component. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, but I know that pure component allows you to render in a more efficient way, because I don't think it loads everything until you want it to. So like in a flat list, it's loaded all these names already, but with all the images it'll slow it down because it loads it at that time. But with pure component, what I believe how that works is that it doesn't request to actually render it until it scrolls down. I got a mosquito bite on my wrist. Oh Jesus Christ, that's fun. All right, so we're gonna have a render method here, and then we're going to get our const name and navigation from is equal to this.props. So I'll actually be showing you here how to manually pass in navigation as a property. And then we're gonna get our name data as well. So we're gonna say const icon URI date and list IDX is equal to this.props.name data. All right, so now let's go ahead and return our component. So return, and then in parentheses, we're going to return a touchable opacity. Oops, there we go. Okay. So we'll start with the style. So style is equal to, and we'll once again add this. So styles dot list item. Let's actually just put that in now before I forget. So in style.js, list item is going to be this. So list item. That's going to have width of 100%, height of 56, flex direction of row, padding of 5, and margin of 5 as well. All right, and then so that's the simple styles there. And then we're going to have our callback, because once again we want to have it so that when you press this, it actually goes to the launch page. So we're going to say on press is equal to a lambda function, no parameters, and we're going to say navigation. So this is why we need the navigation prop. Dot navigate. The name is going to be the launch, that's the route, and our parameters are going to be list IDX is list IDX. That's just from the name data, and then name is name. Or you know what we can actually do? We actually don't need this stuff here. We don't need to pass in the name data. We can just get that from the global variable. If I hope I'm, yeah, that's right. So change list IDX to global.name data at name at list underscore IDX. I believe that's what I set it to. Or I had camel case, okay. And then the name will become just the name. All right, just like that. And then we can put a semicolon, and we can actually try this out just to see if because I feel like that should work. And then we can, and let's just put the text in for now. So text name. All right, so that's not going to render anything. Okay, this is, oh, don't put a comma after each property because it's XML. All right, so now we actually have to tell React Native, oh, I want you to render this component instead of this text here. So the way we're going to do that is instead of rendering to a text, we're going to say launch list item, and then the props are going to be name is equal to item.key, so what we had before, and then now we're going to manually pass in navigation is equal to navigation. All right, so now let's render this, and you see it's more spaced because the styles are applied. So now I'm going to press on this, and it brings us to Falcon Sat, which is the first mission. Do Falcon 9 test flight, good there, and I can go scroll down, get CC this one, which was the one that we were watching from Chuck E. Cheese. I still cannot believe that they streamed that stuff. Okay, so now let's actually just add a little more complex content to, or a little more detail to this list item here. All right, so here we're going to have our image. So image, the style is going to be equal to, we'll have styles dot image icon and styles dot list item icon, and we'll write those classes in a second. And then source, this is another image prop, is equal to URI, which maps to global dot name data at name at icon URI. All right. And then next, we want to give our text. So we're actually going to have a view of text. So view style is equal to styles dot list item text, because we want to render this as a column, because we want to put the name on top and the date on the bottom. So we're going to say text style is equal to, and what you can also do is you can just specify the styles in a dictionary in the properties itself. You don't have to go to a style sheet. So we're just gonna say font weight, font weight bold, just like that. And then we would just want to render the name. And then we also want to render the date. So we're going to say text, and then in here we're going to say global.name data at name at oh, did we? I don't think we did it. Hold on, I think I forgot to do that. So in data, we actually have to add the date to the name data stuff. So after icon URI and data.js, just say comma, and then date is equal to a new date. So we're going to create a date object is equal to, and we're going to initialize that with the element at launch date local. So these are just names taken from the SpaceX API, and they put it in an ISO format so that JavaScript can automatically find it. All right, so now back in launch list, what we have to say is name at date, and then we're going to get the date string. So .to locale. I hope you guys heard that dude's Honda Civic. That was really loud. He probably has a really big dick. So to locale date string, that's just a JavaScript method. So if we save this, we're going to get an error because we actually haven't given it any of these style classes yet. So let's save this first. It'll give us an error once again. Probably not for the reason, because I didn't close the curly braces either. But it didn't find, because we have to reload the data. Yeah, because I just added that in. So let's just do our style, and then we'll hard reload the app. So in style, we have to do our image icon, list item icon, and then list item text. So let's start with image icon. So image icon, what do I have that as? All right, so image icon, we're going to say margin 5, height 46, and width 46. And then a resize mode stretch. So you can, I'm just putting this here just because this is what I used, but you can look into the kind of technicalities of all this stuff. It's just CSS data essentially. So if you know that, you'll know what this means. I'm not going to explain it here because that's not what this video is about. All right, then we also need list item icon, so list item icon, that's the name, that's the class name. We're going to say width is 40, or wait, So the icon space, I want it to be full height and full width, or not, yeah, full height, but the width the same as the height. So we're going to say width is 56, so that's the same as the height as the list item, and then height 46, or 56 rather. And then I'm not going to put any padding because list item image icon already has a margin. And then we'll say flex or justify content center, just so it goes in the center. Oh, I need to put it. Make sure you put commas after everything. It's not semicolons like it is in C++ or CSS, because this is a dictionary. So list item icon, and then finally list item text. So list item text. This will map to, we're going to say the height is 46, or let's 56 because that's the height of the thing. Flex direction is column, and then we're going to say justify content center. And then we're going to put a margin on the left, so margin left is 15. So let's save this and see. All right, cannot perform on mounted component. Oh, I wanted to reload everything. So in the metro server you can click R to reload everything. So now I'm going to look at the new list. So I'm going to click on completed launches, and you see that it now has all of this stuff on it. So it has a logo, each name, and the date that it was launched at. And you see that the images are kind of loading in as you go, and that's just a consequence of the pure component. I hope I'm right there. Don't take my word for it. So I mean, this styling we kind of fix, but I mean it's good for now. So if I click on Starlink 7, you go to the page, and that's all good. Nice. Looks sexy. And then the planned launches is the same thing, except there aren't logos for all of them because they haven't created the logos, except for the Starlink, because Starlink is already a logo. If you want any more information on SpaceX, like this is what this video is about. Getting information on Elon Musk. All right, so that's the list. We are pounding through this stuff. Jesus Christ. All right, so next I'm going to add an about page where we can refresh the data. So this is going to be in pages. So in pages, we're going to say new file, and we'll just call this about. Or you know what? Do I want to do this now? You know, this isn't too important right now. Let's do the actual data for the launch now, because I mean the list index is not too cool. So this is there's going to be a lot of cool stuff from that we use here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create two custom components, and because we're going to use these components in several different areas, I'm going to create a new file for this to store components. So in pages, I'm going to create a new file called components.js, and in components.js I'm going to import our React stuff. So import React component from React, and then import touchable opacity, image, text, linking, dimensions, and that's it, from React-native. And then we're going to import our styles. So import styles from /assets/style/style. All right, so now let's do our. I'm just going to create these two components now, just so we don't have to worry about it later. So the first one is going to be a link, so like a web link. So we're going to say export class link extends component. So we're just going to have a render method. So render. We're going to get props. So const text URL is equal to this.props. We're going to have a termination condition to see if the URL is null, and if it is, we don't want to pass everything. We don't want to render it. This is because in some of these launches, there are like video links or article links, but not for all of them. So even though in a flat, but the reason why we need to have this termination condition is in a flat list, we are just rendering the same thing every time. So we'll just be passing in an empty link that won't actually point anywhere. So we have to have this termination condition. So we're going to say if URL is equal to null, return null. And otherwise, we're going to say return text. Return text style is equal to styles.link, and that'll just, or I think that's just a color blue if I'm right. Yeah, it's just a color blue. So we can just say the style is just color blue. And in here, what we're going to say is on press. So text actually has an on press. So on press is equal to no parameters to this lambda function, and we're going to use the linking module. And we're going to say linking.open URL, and we're going to pass in URL, which is just the prop. And then we're going to render the text in curly braces, just like that. Okay. Next, we're going to have a full width image. So export class full width image extends component. So once again, only render, because this is not a state variable. So we're going to say const URI is equal to this.props. Once again, termination condition. So if URI is equal to null, return null. Oops. Next, we're going to get the width. So since it's full width, we need to get the width of the window. So we're going to say const width is equal to dimensions. This is just from the dimensions module, dimensions.get window.width. So that just gets the width of the window itself. And then we're going to return a touchable opacity. I love saying a touchable opacity. It's just so weird. And this is going to have our on press callback. And we're just going to open the source link. So this points to linking.open URL, and we're going to pass in URI for that. No curly brace, or no semicolon, because it's a one-line lambda. All right, and then in here we're going to have our image. So we're going to say image. The source is equal to URI goes to URI, and the style, I should scroll up a little bit just so you guys can see. So style is equal to width is the width, the height is also the width, and then we're going to say resize mode is contained. So we want it to be contained in that one square. And I need to find a better way to do this. So the reason why I have to do this is because I haven't found a way to kind of resize the view with an image. So if we didn't pass in anything, this image would not appear because we didn't actually explicitly set a height for it. So I need to find a way to actually resize the view with the image. It's kind of like it's an absolute position in HTML, but it's just a little weird. All right, so that's that. And then close that image, right? So those are the two components that we need for now. We will be adding onto this, and the good thing is we only have to write this code once, and then we can use it in any class. All right, so let's hop back into launch.js, and let's import those two components. So we're going to say import, or we should import our styles first. So styles from /assets/style/style, and we want to import those components too. So we're going to import link and full width image from /components. All right, so now we have access to the two components that we just created, and we're going to start with something a little less cool. We're just going to be putting the text values in a scroll view. So we actually have to import scroll view from React Native. So after text, say scroll view, and we're also going to import the flat list again. So flat list. So here in render, we're going to do a couple of things. So we're actually just going to get the let item right now, just because it's easier to just call item every time we want a piece of data. So we're going to say let item, and then we're going to say if global.name data at name.upcoming. So if it's upcoming, we're going to get the data from the upcoming. So we're going to say item is equal to global.upcoming launches is from and the index is going to be list idx minus global.past launches length. Now the reason why we have to do this is because list idx refers to the index in the names list, which is a batched data collection. And otherwise, we're just going to say item is equal to global.past launches at list idx. Give me half a second. I'm just going to go refill my water once again. All right. All right, so once we have the actual item, we're going to now do our scroll view. So in here, we're going to say scroll view, and then we're going to have a bunch of I hate that we're doing this way, but I mean, there's no other way that I'm not going to put too much thought into this. So we're going to say text, and I'm just going to put a couple of elements. So we're going to say flight number. This is item at flight number. And I'm not going to worry too much about the actual about the styling or anything. I might do another video where we like kind of polish it, but that's fine. All right, so we're going to say text launch date / time, and that is the we're going to say global.launch or .name data at name, because remember we have the date actually stored in our data here, so the date, and we just have to get the string from that. So name at date dot to locale string, like that. Let me just make sure that's right. Yeah, okay, that's right. And then we'll print out the details as well. So we're going to say text text is launch details, and that just points to item at details. Once again, these are all just values from the actual API. So let's save this and make sure it gets everything right. Past launches. Undefined is not an object. Did I mess up the names? Huh. This is weird. Global. Oh, I didn't do the camel case. That's fine. All right. So loading data. Good. Latest launch, and we get flight number, launch date, time, and then launch details. Nice. It looks really shitty, but you know, I'm not gonna worry too much. All right. Next, we're gonna have a little bit of some media in here. So we're gonna say text media, and we're gonna make use of our links here. So we're first gonna have a link, and text is equal to launch video, and the URL is equal to item at links at video link. And then I'll just put one more link here, just the article. So link text is equal to article, URL is equal to item at links at article link. Make sure the spelling is right because this API has those values specifically put like that. So let's save this. And so this is the latest launch. Now you see that we have a launch video link here, but what you don't see is the article. Now the reason why is because that termination condition. This link was actually null. It doesn't have, right now in the data, in the latest, let me find it, so the latest launch does not actually have an article for it. So let me just see if I can find it real quick. Where is it? Links. Mission patch. Yeah, so article link right here. This is null. So it doesn't actually have anything. Yeah, that's null right there. So there's no actual link attached to it as of now. But once again, it may update, and this app will stay updated because it takes the data every time. So let's actually click on this launch video, and we can see it on YouTube. 2.5 million views. Streamed live on June 3rd, 20. Oh, this is a stream, so it's 3152. So this actually isn't the manned mission. I'll find that here. Let's actually find that real quick. So I'll do there. So if we go back, I know the manned mission was the second to last thing. It was 5:30. This one. So this actually has an article because it's the NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. All right. So if we click on the launch video, it takes us here and it has this 5-hour stream, and I shit you not, there were literally like 1 million people watching this stream at some point, which is pretty cool. And this is a better rendering than Chuck E. Or no, sorry, this is a worse rendering than Chuck E. Cheese. They get that shit right every time. And we can also take a look at the article. That link also points to a Google Chrome. I'm not giving Google statistics. No, I'm not signing in. All right, so it gives us the article right here. Yeah, so it's all this good stuff. There's a couple of other links. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I will put the actual images up there, and then I think that'll be it because it's almost been 2 hours. Okay, so we're gonna use our full width image again, just for the mission patch. So let me actually just, let me just say text and then images, and then we'll put our image here. So full width image, and the URI is equal to item at links at mission patch. So before we, the icon URI that is already in there is the mission patch small, and that's just for the list because we don't want to get big images for just a small little rendering of it. But for here, it's going to be the full screen, so we do want it to be bigger. So mission patch, and that's that. So we can actually just see if this works out. So there we go. So that's the little thing, and you'll see if we click on it, it actually opens up the link that from where this image comes from. All right, so let's go back there now. All right, now let's. So there's also this thing in the API where it has a bunch of images. So let me just find it. So it has a bunch of images on Flickr. I know, Flickr. It just has an array of images essentially. So we're going to iterate through this array and put each image on there. And you'll see why my design really sucks here. But so to prep for this, we actually have to create another, kind of like what we did for the launch lists. We have to map an existing list to a key list for the list. So we're going to say so above the return, we're going to say let list data is equal to item at links at Flickr underscore images dot map, and each link will be just mapped to a return key with a link there. All right, and then we'll put our flat list here. So we're going to say flat list data is equal to list data. We'll say initial num to render is equal to, we'll just put 1 for now. And then render item is equal to, now we're going to map each item, each item to a full width image. So that points to full width image, and where the URI prop is equal to item.key. And then close out that. All right, something's wrong here. I probably forgot to, oh yeah, I didn't close out the flat list. So this is gonna get pissed off because we have a virtualized list or a flat list inside of the scroll view, but I didn't really find a better way to do it. But you see that it gives us the images here. We have, and once again, these are spaced weirdly because it's the bounds of this touchable opacity is that square. So there, it doesn't kind of just line the images up. I need to find a better way to do that. But you see you have all the images up here. And some of these images were actually real, like, especially here, let me show you guys this one. This latest launch, the Starlink 7. Oh yeah, sometimes I got that error, sometimes don't know why, but so that's this was just such a nice image, just like, oh my god, it's so nice, just actually amazing. But yeah, I mean, it's been 2 hours, so we covered a lot, honestly. Like in my last React Native stream with the learning stuff was pretty simple. We just went through the initial components, but we actually didn't really put it into example. Put in my next series, where I tried to put it into example, I freaking took like 12 out. I shit out like 6 2-hour streams, and I basically did nothing, and the whole concept just didn't work at the end, and I didn't know that, so whole app was kind of just trashed after that. But you know, it's okay, don't worry. Anyway, that's pretty much, that's a good start for an app. I might, depending on if people want it, I might add a second part to this where we will add another page, put some more styling into it, add some more buttons. But I think this is a good little start. It's small, and it's very lightweight. The only library is the React navigation library, and that's kind of necessary for most apps. But it's pretty cool. We experimented with a lot of buttons, a lot of input methods, and we especially looked at how to display, not stylized, but we looked at a lot of ways to display a mass amount. If you take a look at the entire list of data here, so launches, it is literally 95 launches, or 112 I think launches, and just doesn't end. There's just so much data in it, and we literally parse all this stuff using JSON, and it looks pretty good, I think. But yeah, apart from that, I don't have much to say. I might, depending on what people want, I might come back to this at some point. But tomorrow I am planning on starting the awk tree stuff in C++, in the OpenGL stuff, so that's exciting. But I'm getting tired. I'm probably going to pass out from dehydration, but you know what? I'll see you guys on tomorrow. Great. Yeah. That's about it. See ya.